Tonight's newsmaker is former Government Minister Anne Widdecombe, and an investigation by The Observer and the campaign group led by Donkeys has found that 4 Rwandans were granted refugee status in the UK over fears of persecution in their home country. This raises fresh questions over the government's claim that Rwanda is unequivocally safe for asylum seekers. So, Anne Widdecombe, has Sunak's Stop the Boats policy been sunk?
Well, I don't know that it's been sunk, because I think it was already sinking so fast that, it's very, very unlikely we're going to have the Rwanda.
Well, Anne, the issue is that these... sorry, apologies, Anne, you carry on. A bit of an issue with the line. Is it not a problem, an embarrassment for the government that 4 Rwandans have come to the UK to be safe, and we're being told Rwanda's a safe country? Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. The decision is completely incomprehensible. And, I mean, we need a minister to come to the dispatch box in Parliament and explain it as to why they're offering asylum, and at the same time claiming that the country to whose residents they're offering asylum is completely safe. Now, it's one or the other. It can't be both. Listen, Anne, let's talk about this shocking story that has just emerged online. It's massive, in my opinion. It's a volunteer police officer in London telling a Christian woman that she couldn't sing church songs outside of a church setting. Take a listen, you'll be shocked.
Religion you're allowed to do anywhere.
No, miss, you're not allowed to sing church songs outside of church grounds, by the way.
You're not allowed to sing church songs outside
of church songs or church
you're not allowed
grounds. That's fine. That's
you're not allowed. She just said you're not allowed to sing church songs outside of church.
Our church outside of church grounds, unless you have unless you've been authorized by the church to do this kind of song.
He's not saying anything anymore.
Are you saying that you don't care about the Human Rights Act? You're lost?
And this is a volunteer police officer telling a member of the British public they cannot sing Christian songs outside of a church setting. Deeply disturbing. Does this raise questions about the culture and ideology of modern British policing? Well, it certainly will if she is not struck off from the voluntary force tomorrow morning. I mean, she really has got the law completely wrong. And she was obviously enjoying herself rather too much, trying to boss this woman around. And there is no basis at all for saying that you can't sing. I could walk down the street singing Onward Christian Soldiers. I would be committing no offence at all. And nothing would give me greater pleasure than watching you stride down the street singing Onward Christian Soldiers. Listen, there's been a lot of viral videos this week, and you've been responsible for one of them. You broke the internet this week in an interview with LBC presenter Matthew Wright. You were on the phone, he was in the studio, and he challenged you to apologise for Brexit. Let's take a listen to the exchange.
Just tell us which ones were bad, because a lot of EU regulations are really sensible, so I'm just interested out of the thousands and thousands.
Well, I don't know what...
So you don't know which ones are bad, we just throw them all out?
I didn't say that. I'm sorry, Matthew. I'm not going to continue with this, because I didn't say that.
And unemployment is up.
And it was never up when we were in the EU.
It also went down when we were in the EU. 4 million with Margaret Thatcher to 1 million just before we left. I mean, you're just not telling the truth, Anne, are you?
Matthew, right, what you won't do is let me have a word in their choice.
You've had 4 minutes non-stop, Anne.
That's not true. First of all, Anne, can you tell me about the nature of that interview and your experience of it? He was exceptionally rude. And I'm very disappointed by that, because I quite like Matthew Wright, but he was exceptionally rude. I think he's one of those people who, as a friend of mine put it today, maybe a nice chap, but when it comes to Brexit, he's got religion. And he simply can't understand why everybody doesn't share his view. And that was what was coming over today. Every time I tried to make a point, he interrupted. He said at the end I'd had 4 minutes on the trot. The whole interview was 4 minutes. And a great deal of it was his interruption, so I hadn't had 4 minutes on the trot. Very rarely, there was one instance where he did, when I was explaining Project Fear. But apart from that, he just would not let me finish a sentence, and he tried to suggest that I was saying things I wasn't saying. So if I start off by saying I can't, then he immediately jumps in and says, oh, you can't tell us which ones are bad. Well, I went on to later on. But I just find it extraordinary that there are people who are so resentful of a democratic vote that they can't even conduct an interview in a professional manner. I thought he was very rude. I'm still considering whether to complain to LBC, but I probably won't bother. Did he have a point when he said that actually the EU regulations are mostly sensible and we would probably adopt them anyway?
Oh, we wouldn't get rid of the sensible ones. I mean, we always made that quite clear. But now we're being told that thousands are about to be ditched, presumably because they're not sensible. And the point that I was making was, we haven't yet had Brexit. Why is it taking us more than 4 years to ditch these regulations when we could have done most of them in the first 4 months? We simply have not got Brexit as we envisaged Brexit, which was a proper divergence. Not convergence, but divergence between us and the EU. Of course, I mean, it's not a point, it's a statement of the blinking obvious to say that not all EU regulations were stupid, and it's also a statement of the obvious to say that some of our own regulations, which were independent of the EU, were stupid. But nevertheless, that is not a reason for saying that we shouldn't be getting rid of those that we don't need. And if ever you wanted to see a stupid regulation that we produced and the EU didn't, it was that actually we should all ensure, and I'm serious about this, I said it in Hansard, it's perfectly true, that we should all ensure that when we provide litter boxes for our cats, we take, and I quote, cognizance of the animal's preference for privacy. That was us, not the EU, even they aren't that daft.
Well, there you go. Let me tell you, Anne, I'm your #1 fan. I'm a big fan of Matthew Wright on LBC as well, and it was a fascinating exchange, but I thought you stood your ground brilliantly. Anne, we'll catch you in a week's time.
Don't be so patronising. I stood my ground brilliantly. I made a case that needed making, and in case you haven't noticed, I've dressed tonight in my country's colours because I'm very fed up with Matthew Wright.
Definitely. I thought you were BA cabin crew tonight, Anne. You've just handed me a bag of nuts.
But be careful, you might be allergic.
I probably will. The formidable Anne Widdecombe. Thank you, Anne. There you go. That's 2 presenters she's handbagged in 1 week. The brilliant Anne Widdecombe returns in a week's time.